political prisoners and prisoners of conscience in Congo-Brazzaville under the complicit silence of France and,
Today people are dying in Congo. France knows what is happening in Congo. There is a general who was an opponent of the incumbent president who is surrounded by the police. In his house, no one said anything. This is an explosive situation. France has its responsibility. The government has its share of responsibility. I would say simply because no, but it is serious. Because if situations degenerate, because France makes the wrong geopolitical choices in Africa, then we should not be surprised by what is happening today in France. That's the problem.
General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko, as you know, is a Congolese politician born in 1947. This general officer of the Congolese armed forces is currently 77 years old. Personal and security in Africa between 2014 and 2016. As you know, 17 years after his return to power by military coup in June 1997,
accusing Pascal Lissouba of colluding with Jana Savimbi's UNITA, Angolan President Dos Santos brings his friend Denis Sassou Nguesso the reinforcement of his own.
The army UNITA couldn't form an alliance with them, so our friends from Luanda met there. We received material support in Luanda, which helped end the war, but after that we secured it in early October 1997, though the war started on June 5th, 1997.
where did the weapons come from?
How were they?
Routed?
How's the air? There are numerous seas and roads. To leave Luanda in Congo, it doesn't seem like we need a miracle, as it's a large state with planes and boats. So how? I can then inform you of which direction these weapons might have traveled. They arrived successfully?
To tell you what it is, and quite frankly, I welcomed Angola's intervention in Congo for the simple reason that this country was collapsing into a self-destructive civil war and that it was desirable for order to return. There was someone who could bring him back. It was Denis Sassou Nguesso. He needed outside support for that. For a number of reasons, Angola brought it to him. Peace has returned. Development is finally here. I mean, the conditions for development are picking up. This city that has become a martyr of Brazza is beginning to recover. And Denis Sassou Nguesso has committed himself to implement the democratization process within a maximum period of 2 years, which is considered by the international authorities as something good. And voila.
Denis Sassou Nguesso, then aged 71, will repeat in 2015 by a constitutional coup d'etat.
President Denis Sassou Nguesso will hold a referendum to amend the constitution. The challenge is to allow him to run for a new mandate. He has been running the country for 30 years. The opposition accuses him of opening a new serious crisis. The election is scheduled for mid-2016.
And there, General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko openly opposed it and condemned a constitutional coup d'etat.
They work together, but when Mokoko understands that Sassou is doing too much, then that's where he sets himself apart from him.
Il se démarque de lui. Et surtout après que Sassou,
and especially after Sassou expressed his intentions to amend the constitution in 2015 to be able to run, that's where Mokoko,
he declared that enough was enough.
On October 25, 2015, a new constitution was imposed by arms. Several peaceful demonstrators against this referendum will be murdered by militias acquired by Denis Sassou Nguesso, the violin. Thus, the constitution of January 20, 2002, in particular in these Articles 57. which in fact provided for a mandate of 7 years renewable only once, and Article 185 prohibiting any revision relating to the number of mandates, as well as Article 58 on the limitation of the age to no more than 70 years at the time of his election.
Nous ne pouvons qu'être très tristes. La force publique est faite pour...
The public force is made to secure the population. What we wanted was to hold a meeting to defend our ideas and get our messages across. And we are unfortunately surprised.
It is very unfortunate that the public force, which should have secured the meeting, caused victims. And we already recorded 2 or 3 deaths.
Both Bernadette and I
a constitutional coup d'etat to be able, of course, to run for a 3rd term.
Barely 2 months after the referendum on the new constitution, the Congolese president is moving up a gear.
Renewal of the institutions of the Republic. Participate in this acceleration. This is why the Council of Ministers will quickly convene the electorate sooner than planned, so that the presidential election will be held in the first quarter of 2016.
A presidential election by the end of March instead of July sounds reasonable.
The new constitution was formally adopted in November 2015.
For the political and social forces opposed to the constitutional change, the referendum of 25 October was neither fair, free, nor transparent. It's illegal. For these reasons, the political and social forces opposed to the change of the constitution declare null and void the purpose and results of the similar referendum. It demands annulling this referendum and withdrawing the new constitution text entirely.
A constitutional referendum denounced by international organizations, a wave of repression of opponents will follow this event, also reported by these international organizations.
Une vague de répression d'opposants va succéder à cet événement, également rapporté par ces organisations internationales.
The message I'm sending? To all the populations, but it is to tell them that it is their most absolute right to choose the next president of the Republic, and that, being done,
they must.
All voters.
Are they supposed to enjoy themselves?
This right, and secondly, to be really vigilant so that this election is the expression of their desire for change. I felt that people in general are prepared for things to change in this country.
On February 9, 2018 at 7 p.m., General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko will resign from his position as advisor to the President of the Republic and announce his candidacy for the presidential elections.
Le général Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko va démissionner de ses fonctions de conseiller du président de la République et annoncer sa candidature aux élections présidentielles.
Then in the shift to often illegal expatriation in the face of increasing poverty, of our sisters, of our reduced mothers, towards survival in the face of the humiliation of our ancestors, contrary to the bitterness often attributed to credit. From God, in the face of the constant decline of the state, faced with the social divide. Gaping, which utilized Congo, caught between riches and reputation, to urgent requests, many compatriots united.
Forces of Progress.
I've decided to take the party of the people by running for office. The presidential race?
That's where it's all going to start. On his return to the Central African Republic, he was attacked at the airport by members of the auxiliary police who not only used tear gas, but violently beat members of the family of General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko and his friends.
Des bombes lacrymogènes, mais vont violemment frapper les membres de la famille du général Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko et ses amis.
Against a regime in place that did everything to prevent the campaign from taking place, to prevent us from filing the candidacy, to prevent us even from being present in the country. You know, when General Mokoko arrived in Brazzaville, it was February 7th when everyone knew that he was coming to announce his candidacy. Population spontaneously just waited at Brazzaville airport. Suddenly there are people, armed men who come with police or security vehicles, state who hit, who beat people who were there. We were all thrown, lynched. General Mokoko was hit by projectiles. It was stones or we don't know what which injured him in the knee. His car was stoned and I myself suffered blows. Friends, relatives were injured. It set the tone of the campaign. It set the way in which Mr. Sasugaso wanted to lead this campaign, and everything else happened like that. Cancellations of meetings, of refusals of rental. For example, we wanted to rent a plane to go to areas of Congo that are otherwise inaccessible, but all the airlines were owned or related to the family of Monus, and everything. Almost all of them were refused to us, and you cannot imagine how difficult, with what difficulty we were able to have every element, every detail to be able to move forward. It was in intimidation, threats, violence, fear, prohibitions. It was a very difficult campaign.
The vehicle of General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko will be taken. Party trashed. Fortunately, the general will emerge unscathed. On March 4, 2016, the opening day of the presidential election campaign, General Jean-Marie Michel de Mokoko will be summoned to the General Directorate of Territorial Surveillance to be heard. As a result, investigators will search his home. No seizure had been made on that occasion. Remember this investigation sequence, I repeat, that as a result of this search, no seizure had been made. However, it is on the basis of this search that he has since been accused of being in possession of a weapon of war. By arbitrarily arresting General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko, Mr. Denis Sassou Nguesso has just proved his categorical refusal of this inclusive political dialogue. He's the only one who can bring the country out of the current crisis. The Conference of Presidents of FLOCAD, IDC and GM3 components now reserves the citizen right to consult all Republican political and social forces with a view to setting up a preparatory committee for this inclusive dialogue. Despite this, on 18th July 2016, General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko was notified of a new indictment for incitement to disturbances to public order, a charge contested by the latter, who will reject all the facts with which he was accused. In reality, the imprisonment of General Jean-Marie Michel Mokoko was part of a campaign of repression of Congolese political opponents since the March 2016 elections, similar to those that took place after the 2015 referendum. International non-governmental organizations had denounced these repressions and arrests of political opponents.
The public is informed of the opening of a judicial investigation against the appointee. At Kombi Salisa André, here present, Mumele Leon and Makoso, fugitive hope of the leaders of illegal possession of weapons and ammunition of war to reach the internal security of the state, misappropriation of public data and complicity. In view of the extreme seriousness of the facts, I requested that the senior investigating judge issue the warrants of detention awarded against the appointed commissioner, André, and international arrest warrants against the Data Mumele Leon and Makoso Espoir currently on the run.
You have probably noticed, as if by chance, that all Congolese political opponents are accused of undermining state security here.
The Capolin Makayak, murder, complicity in invasion, complicity in illegal possession of arms and ammunition of war.
Congo is our business, and Congo is a community of shared values. We cannot move forward if there is no competition for talent, if it was the best, if it was good, but Congo would be the most developed country with all that we have as well. But the country is sick, but we have ambitions for this country. We also have talent. We know what we are capable of. I made proposals, didn't I? We need to leave politics, stop the intimidation.
Another element of assessment is the case of the opponent Modeste Bukadia, sentenced in 2014 in absentia to 30 years of forced labor, also for the same charge, undermining the internal security of the state. An accusation he has always vehemently denied. He will be picked up again at the foot of the plane at Maya Maya Airport, while he had gone to Brazzaville in January 2016 to visit his mother, who was suffering just like his spiritual father.
All meeting permits had been requested, granted and paid for. These men were arrested because they displayed signs marked red card, as in football. A change of government or a national unity government. And the reason for their arrest from disturbances on public roads went to endangering the security of the state. 14 were released and 14 were kept. Then for sentences ranging from 2 years to 7 years in prison. On the list, it's added. And we knew it well afterwards. Modeste was sentenced in absentia to 30 years of hard labor. This conviction in absentia was not reported to Modeste either by the Republic of Congo, i.e. by the President or his representatives, or by the Congolese embassy. In France, nor by an international bailiff. It was when Modeste returned on January 15, 2016 to the Congo that he was served this paper saying, "Do you recognize it?"
Modeste Bukadian will only regain his freedom thanks to a medical evacuation to France after more than a year of arbitrary detention and torture. All those who oppose Denis Sassou Nguesso, you have also understood, are targets to be destroyed. Apart from arbitrary arrests, it is also worth mentioning the physical torture suffered by other opponents. The case of Augustin Kalakala, who was kidnapped on the night of 28 to 29 September 2016 by around 10 armed men in civilian clothes at his home in front of his wife. Arbitrarily detained in Denis Sassou Nguesso's private jails, then tortured to death and thrown in front of the Brazzaville morgue by Denis Sassou Nguesso's death squads. Augustin Kalakala later succumbed to the physical abuse inflicted on him by Denis Sassou Nguesso's torture services. Brazzaville dictator Denis Sassou also wants help from French intelligence services to track down Congolese political opponents abroad. General Ferdinand Baou, former director of presidential security under President Pascal Issouba, miraculously escaped an assassination attempt in November 2015 as he left his home in Bessancourt, France. The perpetrator of this assassination would be a former spy of the French DGSE, Daniel Forestier, who was executed later in March 2019 by 5 bullets, including in the chest and head.
The case is worthy of a spy novel. Last Thursday, the body of a former French intelligence agent was found.
Here at this place?
In the parking lot of the town of Balaison, near Lake Geneva. According to the autopsy, the body of Daniel Forestier, 58, received 5 bullet holes, including one in the heart, another in the head. For the police, this murder looks like an execution. A murder investigation was immediately opened. Ella.
Victim had lived for around 20 years in the small town of Lusingue, in Haute-Savoie, with his wife and 2 children. Until last September, he was even city councillor Daniel.
Forrester had been indicted last September as part of an investigation into a planned assassination targeting an opponent of the Congolese president.
For nearly 20 years, refugees in France.
Had it not been for the good Lord's intervention, I should have died the first time. And it continued.
I doubt it.
I can't feel safe if we've been waiting at my house twice.
A life without meaning.
That I have protection and without the authorities saying a word. I want, I hold, I even demand to meet the judge, so that those who have the opportunity to compare the ball that is in my body and the ball, the other balls, for the situation, both of Mr.
Forrester, Congo is a country fraught with significant violence and conflict, making it notoriously unsafe and extremely violent. The heads of state were imprisoned. I don't know how many states have been imprisoned here in West Africa. Heads of state were killed, assassinated in the middle of 12 Toit. Point blank, huh? And there are countless civil wars. National conferences count at least 30,000 dead. So this violence still leads you to a certain analysis, That means you don't count, it's just me that counts, right? Just like your opinions don't matter, my opinions do. Your way of analyzing doesn't matter, it's mine. We managed to mount these things there, and then while it is a small price for nothing at all, that barely 3 or 4 million inhabitants, who all know each other. They are smart, they are awake, but when it comes to power, they become hungry lions. So I believe that in the case of Congo, more blood has been shed than in any other African country. I mean in any other African country. He is wise though, I think. So as not to kill yourself?
Every day?
For nothing. For the power simply, and the powers that do not advance the country also do not kill each other every day. And it's innocent people who are dying. The fight killed almost all these cadres. They are imprisoned, they are poisoned, they are sick. There is almost nothing. And the country is falling culturally, intellectually, there is. But we cannot accept that for the interests of etc.